Welcome to the Funeral Channel Network podcast. I know that sounds a little grim right off the bat, but stick with us.
It does, but we have to talk about it.
We do. We are diving into a topic today that is going to touch every single one of us eventually, and we're looking at it through a very specific, very 2026 lens.
It's the intersection of the inevitable and the artificial.
Exactly. So imagine this scenario. Let's just set the scene. It is Tuesday morning.
Okay.
You are sitting at your kitchen table. The house is quiet, and I mean uncomfortably quiet. The kind of quiet that just rings in your ears.
It's kind of feels heavy.
Yeah. You haven't slept in roughly 48 hours because your brain has just been running on a loop of shock and logistics and phone calls.
Making the arrangements, calling relatives you haven't spoken to in years.
All of it. You're on your fourth cup of coffee. Your hands are shaking a little from the caffeine and, the adrenaline crash. And you are staring at a blinking cursor on a blank white screen.
It's a visceral image. That specific kind of paralysis where the screen feels like it's almost mocking you.
Right. But this isn't writer's block for a quarterly report. It's not a wedding toast where you're trying to be funny. This is the worst week of your life. Someone you love, a parent, a partner, a sibling has just died. And because you are the responsible one, or maybe the eloquent one in the family, you have been tasked with the impossible.
The impossible.
In 3 days, you have to stand up in front of 200 people, family, friends, coworkers, the saber who never returned your lawnmower, and sum up an entire human existence in 5 to 7 minutes.
And the pressure is just suffocating. It is arguably the most high-stakes public speaking moment a person will ever face.
I think it has to be.
You aren't just presenting information. You're curating a legacy while you are actively traumatized. You feel like if you get it wrong,
You failed them.
you failed them one last time. It's an incredible weight.
Exactly. And in that moment of absolute exhaustion, a thought pops into your head, a very modern, very 2026 thought. We use AI for everything else, right? We use it to debug our Python scripts. We use it to write our marketing copy. We use it to generate meal plans and negotiate our cable bills.
All the little frictions of life.
Why not just open a chat window, type in a few details, name, John, dates, 1950, 2026. Attributes, good dad, liked fishing, stubborn, and hit enter.
And the allure is undeniable. I mean, within seconds, the cursor stops blinking.
And you have a speech.
You have a speech. It's grammatically flawless. The tone is somber yet uplifting. It uses words like cherished and unwavering. The problem is, quote unquote, solved.
It feels like a miracle. It feels like a lifeline thrown to a drowning person. But that is exactly where we need to hit the pause button, because today we are doing a deep dive into a topic that sits right at that uncomfortable intersection of high-tech efficiency and one of humanity's oldest, most intimate rituals.
But we are talking about the ethics of using artificial intelligence to write eulogies.
It's fascinating, and to be honest, it makes me squirm a little. We're working off a really heavy-hitting essay titled Ethical Considerations of Using AI in Writing Eulogies Today.
It's a great source. It really digs into this tension between convenience and, well, soul.
Soul, yeah. And we're also going to be pulling in some frameworks from the funeral program site, which comes up in the research as a key resource for understanding what legacy actually means in a physical and digital sense.
Which is so important here, and it really forces us to ask a massive question. Does using AI to write a eulogy save us from unnecessary stress? Is it just a tool like a spell checker? Or does it actually rob us of a necessary, if painful, part of the grieving process? Or are we optimizing something that just shouldn't be optimized?
That's the mission today. We're going to unpack the psychological appeal, this crisis of authorship, like who is actually speaking at the funeral, and what happens to our memories when they get processed by a large language model.
If you've ever wondered what happens when we invite the machine into the funeral home, buckle up. This gets complicated and it gets personal.
So let's start with the obvious, because I think we have to be fair to the user here. The allure. Why do people do it?
Yeah.
Because my initial reaction, if I'm being totally honest, is of course I'd use it. If I'm grieving, I'm a mess. I can't write. I can barely tie my shoes. I feel like judging someone for using a shortcut during the worst week of their life is a bit harsh.
And that is completely valid. We shouldn't shame that impulse. To understand the appeal, we have to look at the biology and psychology of loss. The source material makes a really important point here. Grief is physically disruptive.
Right.
It's not just sadness. It's not just an emotion you feel in your heart.
It's systemic. It's your whole body.
Precisely. It's a cognitive fog. When you are in deep grief, your body is flooded with cortisol, the stress hormone.
Like the fight or flight hormone.
Exactly. And this actually inhibits the prefrontal cortex, the part of your brain responsible for executive function, decision-making, and complex language.
So literally, the part of the brain you need to write a speech is the part that is being shut down by the grief itself?
That's it, exactly. Grief disrupts concentration, it messes with your emotional regulation, and it fragments your memory. You might be sitting there trying to remember a specific happy memory, and your brain just gives you static.
Ah, that's a great way to put it. Static.
It's like trying to tune a radio in a storm. You know the music is there somewhere, but you just can't find the frequency.
Which is just terrible timing because suddenly you have a deadline. Funerals don't wait until you're feeling creative or rested.
Not at all.
You can't say, hey, can we push the burial to next month? I'm having writer's block.
Right. And writing a eulogy isn't just writing. It's not like writing a cover letter. The source calls it relational work.
Relational work. I like that. Unpack that for me.
It means you aren't just listing facts from a biography like a Wikipedia page. You're trying to act as a bridge.
A bridge between who?
Between the deceased person and the living people in the room. You are weaving together a shared history. You're reminding everyone why this person mattered to all of them. That is a heavy, heavy cognitive load for a brain that is already in survival mode.
I like that term, relational work. It implies that the work isn't just about the words on the page, it's about the connections between people, living and dead.
Yes. And when your brain is in survival mode, it craves simplicity. It craves patterns. It wants the path of least resistance. So enter AI.
The easy path.
The source describes it as a potential cognitive prosthetic.
That's a great term for it. A prosthetic limb helps you walk when you can't. A cognitive prosthetic helps you think when you can't.
It creates structure out of chaos.
Yeah.
That's the primary allure. You are staring at the blank page, completely paralyzed. AI can give you an outline in seconds.
A starting point.
It can give you sentence starters. It can take a jumble of your thoughts. He liked fishing, he was stubborn, he loved his grandkids, he hated broccoli, and turn it into a coherent paragraph.
It bridges that gap between feeling the emotion and actually articulating it. Because sometimes you feel the loss in your chest, it's heavy, but the words just aren't there. You open your mouth and nothing comes out.
Right. And in that sense, the source acknowledges that AI offers genuine relief. It removes the panic of, I have nothing to say. It lowers the activation energy required to start the task.
It takes you from 0 to 1.
It takes you from 0 to 1.
Right.
And that can feel like everything in that moment.
And there's always a but in these deep dives, otherwise we wouldn't be talking for an hour. Here is where we hit the first snag. The source talks about the Polish trap.
The Polish trap. This is fascinating. We have to understand how these models, these large language models, actually work.
Okay.
They excel at pattern recognition.
Yeah.
They have read millions of eulogies, or at least millions of texts about grief, death, and remembrance. They know exactly what sad but hopeful sounds like. They know the cadence.
They know the rhythm of a funeral. It's almost musical.
Exactly. It's a statistical rhythm. They know how to use words like cherished, legacy, unwavering, beacon. They know how to construct a sentence that swells emotionally and then resolves into a quiet, dignified conclusion.
It makes you sound like a poet, or at least a very competent Hallmark writer.
It does. And for someone who feels insecure about their writing, maybe they weren't good at English in high school or they're afraid of embarrassing themselves or the family, that polish is incredibly tempting.
Oh, for
So
sure.
you read the output and think, wow, this sounds dignified, this sounds professional.
Professional is an interesting word to use for a funeral, because usually we associate professional with work,
Yeah.
with distance, with wearing a tie and not crying.
And that's the rub. That's the trap. The source warns that speed and polish can overshadow personal truth.
Okay.
There is a temptation to accept the AI's version just because it sounds good, even if it feels slightly off, even if it feels a little too smooth.
It's like buying a really expensive, perfectly tailored suit off the rack, but it's for someone else's body type.
That's a great analogy.
It looks great on the hanger, it looks expensive, but when you put it on, the sleeves are too long, the shoulders are too tight, it doesn't fit you.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And the audience can feel that. They might not be able to name it, but they can sense the disconnect.
So the question the source raises, and this is a question for you, the listener, to really sit with, is a eulogy meant to be a performance of eloquence?
Are we trying to win a Pulitzer here? Are we auditioning for a TED Talk?
Right. Or is it meant to be a raw, authentic expression of loss? because AI can give you the eloquence, but it absolutely cannot give you the authenticity.
That is a wall it cannot climb.
And that distinction between performance and expression is key. We live in such a performative culture now. Everything is content, even our grief.
And that leads us right into the next section of the source material, which I think is maybe the most philosophical part of this deep dive.
The authorship crisis.
The crisis of authorship.
Who is speaking? That's the core question.
Right. Who is speaking? If I prompt an AI and it spits out a 3-minute speech and I go up to the podium and read it, am I saying goodbye?
Or am I just the narrator? Am I just reading a script provided by a third party?
It creates a profound disconnect. The source discusses the feeling of standing at a podium, delivering words that you didn't struggle to find. There's a potential for guilt there, a feeling of imposter syndrome at your own father's funeral.
Imagine that feeling. You're standing there, you're looking at your family.
In the front row.
In the front row, my aunt is crying, my mom is nodding, clutching a tissue. They're crying because of the beautiful words I'm saying. He was a beacon of light in a dark world, but I didn't write them. I didn't pull them from my heart. I pulled them from a server farm in Oregon.
It's the Cyrano de Bergerac problem, but with much higher stakes. You aren't just wooing a crush. You are honoring a life.
A whole life.
The source suggests that this disconnect can actually alienate the speaker from the service. You become a performer rather than a participant. You are delivering content rather than sharing grief.
That's a harsh way to put it. Delivering content. But that's essentially what it is, isn't it? You become a text-to-speech engine made of flesh and blood.
And we have to ask,
Yeah.
does the audience care? This is a debate within the source material. From a purely utilitarian perspective, if the words comfort the audience, does the origin matter?
Right.
If your mom feels better, hearing that beacon of light line, does it matter that ChatGPT wrote it?
That's the devil's advocate position. The ends justify the means. If the result is tears and comfort, the process is irrelevant.
But the counterargument, and the one the source really leans into, is that the audience is there to witness your relationship with the deceased. They want to hear your voice, your specific pain, your specific love. If you outsource the words, you are removing yourself from the equation. You are removing the relationship.
You're hiding behind the algorithm's words.
You are.
But we have to draw a line here, right? Because the source doesn't say all AI is evil. It's not a Luddite manifesto. It draws a pretty clear distinction between assistance and replacement.
Yes.
We need to be nuanced.
This is the critical ethical boundary defined in the text. We need to understand the difference between using a tool and replacing the human.
Okay, let's unpack that. What does ethical assistance actually look like in practice? Give me a concrete example.
Ethical assistance is using the tool to organize your thoughts. It's the sous chef model.
Okay.
You are the head chef. You create the menu, you choose the ingredients, you taste the sauce. The sous chef just chops the onions.
Okay, I like that. So let's say you have the stories. You know you want to talk about the time your dad taught you to ride a bike. That's a classic. And the time he burned the Thanksgiving turkey. But you don't know how to transition between them. They feel disjointed.
So you say to the AI, here are two stories. One is about resilience and teaching. The other is about humor and imperfection.
Yeah.
Help me build a bridge from the bike story to the turkey story.
So you're providing the raw materials, the memories.
You are providing the narrative arc. You are providing the sensory details. The AI is just smoothing the cement between the bricks you laid.
Yeah. Or maybe I'm stuck on the opening. Here are 3 things I want to say about him. Give me 3 options for an opening sentence that captures the spirit.
Exactly. Or even check my grammar. Or I keep using the word nice. Give me a few synonyms.
That's just an advanced thesaurus.
It is. In that case, the core content, the memories, the essence, the specific facts, is coming from human memory. The AI is just the editor. It's holding the flashlight, but you're walking the path.
Okay, that feels safe. That feels like using a calculator to do math. You're still solving the problem, you just have help with the mechanics. So what is unethical replacement? Where do we cross the line?
Replacement is when you allow the AI to invent the content. When you prompt it with something generic like, write a touching eulogy for a grandmother who was kind, and you let the AI decide what kindness looks like.
And the AI has a very specific, very cliche idea of what a kind grandmother is.
Oh, absolutely. It's going to go right to the statistical average.
So the AI starts saying things like, she always had a warm cookie waiting for us.
And you read it and think, well, that sounds nice. But maybe she didn't bake. Maybe she couldn't cook to save her life. Maybe she expressed kindness by fixing your flat tire or knitting scratchy sweaters.
Or buying you Oreos.
Right. Or even if it's not factually wrong, it's just generic, it creates what the source calls an interchangeable eulogy.
Interchangeable. That's a scary word in this context. It implies that people are interchangeable.
It means that if you took the name out of the speech, if you removed Grandma Betty and inserted Grandma Susan, you could read it for any grandmother anywhere in the world.
And no one would know the difference.
No one would know. It relies on tropes. She was the glue that held us together. She had a heart of gold. She lit up every room she entered.
I feel like I've heard she lit up every room she entered at about 10 different funerals.
Exactly. And maybe she did. But maybe she was the quiet person in the corner who made you feel safe. AI doesn't know the difference unless you tell it. The AI doesn't know the texture of her presence.
That is a really powerful litmus test. Could this be read for someone else? If the answer is yes, you've probably outsourced too much. You've generated a stereotype, not a tribute.
And that brings us to the hidden cost of this outsourcing. We talked about the efficiency, getting it done fast. But what are we losing when we prioritize that speed? The source calls this emotional outsourcing.
I found this part really moving, the idea that the process is the point.
Yes. In our modern world, we are obsessed with finished products. We are a deeply transactional society. We want the email sent, the code written, the project done. We are task-oriented.
We want to check the box. Write eulogy. Check.
Exactly. But grief doesn't work like that.
Grief isn't a task list.
No. The source argues that the actual act of writing the eulogy, the struggle, the sitting there crying while looking at old photos, the crossing out of words, the remembering that pain is a functional part of the healing.
It forces you to sit with the memories. You have to go into the mental archives and dust things off. You have to relive the bike ride. You have to smell the burnt turkey.
It forces you to confront the reality of the loss. It is a form of grief work, a concept that goes back to Freud and Kubler-Ross. It's an active process.
So if we bypass that struggle, if we just click a button and get the finished product, the source suggests we might be short-circuiting our own grieving process.
We are. We're trying to hack the funeral. But you can't hack grief. You can't optimize heartbreak.
You can't find a shortcut through it.
No. We aren't trying to solve the funeral. We are trying to experience it. Efficiency in grief is often counterproductive. The goal isn't to be done with the speech. The goal is to prepare yourself to say goodbye. The writing is the preparation.
It's like climbing a mountain. If you take a helicopter to the top, you're at the top, but you didn't have the experience of the climb, and the climb changes you.
That's a perfect analogy. The view might be the same, but the person standing there looking at it is different.
And there's another side to this emotional outsourcing, which is what the AI actually produces. We touched on it with the interchangeable idea, but the source calls it the homogenization of memory.
Homogenization is the perfect word. Think about how these large language models work. They are probabilistic. They predict the most likely next word based on the average of all human texts they've been trained on.
So they literally gravitate toward the average. They regress to the mean.
Yes. They drift toward what is statistically probable and universally comforting. They smooth over the edges. They sand down the rough parts of a personality to make it palatable.
But people aren't palatable. People are jagged. People are weird. People are complicated. That's what makes them people.
Exactly. The source argues that ethical remembrance embraces specificity. It embraces the quirks, the contradictions, the imperfections.
The source had a great point about this. It's the difference between saying he was a kind soul and, well, give me a human example.
Human example would be, he was grumpy in the mornings until he had his coffee, and he cursed at the television during football games. But he would drive through a blizzard at 3 a.m. to jumpstart your car.
See, that paints a picture. Kind soul is nice, but cursing at the TV is real. I can see him. I can hear him yelling at the referee.
Laughs. Exactly. And AI struggles with that. It might miss the grumpy part because grumpy doesn't fit the statistical pattern of a touching eulogy.
It's a negative word. The AI wants to avoid negative words.
It thinks, wait, this is a eulogy. I should only include positive adjectives. But for the people in the room, the grumpiness is what makes the memory real. That's the texture of the person.
If we let AI wash away all the flaws, we're eulogizing a saint, not the person we actually knew. We are creating a polished avatar of them.
And that does a disservice to the deceased. It creates a caricature. It turns them into a Disney character instead of a complex human being. It strips them of their humanity in the name of dignity.
Speaking of the deceased, let's pivot to the legal and ethical rights of the person in the casket. This was an angle I hadn't really thought about. Consent.
It's a fascinating ethical angle. It's a bit of a mind bender.
Mm.
The source points out that the deceased obviously cannot approve how they are summarized.
Right.
They can't read the draft. They can't say, hey, don't tell that story, or please make sure you mention my garden.
So the speaker is basically the steward of their reputation. You are the curator of their entire life.
You are the guardian of their story. And when you hand that guardianship over to an algorithm, you're taking a risk. We know that AI models can hallucinate.
Hallucinate sounds so trippy, but in this context, it just means making stuff up.
Right, confidently making stuff up. It draws from generalized data patterns. If you say, write a eulogy for a devout Catholic man, the AI might insert specific prayers or beliefs that the person didn't actually hold.
Oh, wow.
Just because they are statistically associated with that demographic.
So you could accidentally attribute a belief to someone that they would have fundamentally disagreed with.
Exactly. Maybe he was Catholic but hated organized religion.
Yeah.
Maybe he was spiritual but hated the rosary. The AI deals in stereotypes. If you don't fact-check that output rigorously, you are essentially putting words in the mouth of the dead.
That feels like a violation. It really does. Does the dead person have a right to not be eulogized by a robot?
That's the provocative question. Imagine a person who spent their whole life valuing authenticity. Maybe they handwrote letters. Maybe they hated technology.
Yeah.
Maybe they were a carpenter who valued working with their hands.
Right.
Would they be horrified to know their final tribute was generated by a server?
It feels like a final betrayal of their values. Here lies John, eulogized by the machine he hated.
It's a fundamental mismatch.
Yeah.
And then there's also the privacy issue. This is a big one.
Mm-hmm.
To get a good eulogy, to avoid the generic cookie trap, you have to feed the beast. You have to give it data.
And that is a huge concern. We are talking about the deepest moments of a life. To make the AI sound personal, you have to type in private memories, family dynamics, maybe even sensitive secrets or medical history.
He struggled with addiction, or he had a secret passion for opera, or he and his brother were estranged for 10 years. You input that to get the nuance.
Right. And where does that data go? The source raises the red flag of data privacy. How is that information stored? Is the memory of your loved one being used to train the next version of the model?
That is the dystopian angle. My grandfather's life story, his secrets, his pain, his triumphs, being used as training data to help a chatbot learn how to write better fiction for someone else.
It turns a life into a commodity, into content, into tokens for a machine.
An ethical requirement. Families must be aware. If you are the one writing the eulogy, you need to think about whether you have the right to upload those private family details into a corporate database.
You might be comfortable with it, but would your Aunt Susan? Would the deceased?
It's a collective decision, really. And then there's the cultural layer. We mentioned the Catholic example, but this goes deeper.
Okay.
Eulogies are deeply tied to tradition, faith, and community norms. They are ritualistic. The source warns that AI lacks cultural nuance. It is often trained on a very Western-centric English-language data set.
So it might default to a very American, secular Christian style of speech.
Exactly. It might use phrasing that sounds Christian for a secular service, or it might completely miss the specific rites of a Jewish, Muslim, or Hindu ceremony. It might not understand the specific cultural rhythm of mourning in different communities.
Like an Irish wake has a very different vibe than a Japanese funeral.
Completely different. One might encourage roasting the deceased and loud storytelling. The other might prioritize solemnity and specific honorifics. AI tends to blend these all into a generic, sad speech.
It flattens the culture. It's like a cultural steamroller.
The source had a good rule for this. We must adapt technology to fit cultural meaning, not force culture to conform to the text output.
You shouldn't change your traditions because the AI doesn't know how to write for them. You have to be the cultural editor. You have to impose the culture onto the text, not the other way around.
Exactly. You are the cultural gatekeeper.
So we've covered the risk, we've covered the why, but let's be real, people are still going to use these tools. The cat is out of the bag. We can't put the genie back in the bottle.
No, we can't.
So let's talk about how to do it right. The source provides some practical frameworks for ethical use.
It does. It moves from the theoretical to the practical. Yeah. And it starts by referencing a philosophy from the funeral program site.
Right. They came up a couple of times. They focus on printed programs, but the philosophy applies to the speech too. What's their take?
Their philosophy is that meaning comes from personalization, not perfection. This distinction between legacy and performance is key.
We talked about the pressure to be polished earlier, the fear of stumbling over your words.
There is a growing societal pressure, exacerbated by social media where everything is broadcast, to produce these TED Talk-style eulogies. We feel like we have to be profound, we have to be funny, we have to be poised.
You watch clips of celebrity funerals and think, I have to do that.
Precisely.
I've definitely felt that. You don't want to be the one stumbling over your words and looking like a mess. You want to look strong. You want to do them justice.
But here's the expert counterpoint from the source. A heartfelt, stumbling, imperfect tribute often carries more weight than a flawless, AI-generated speech.
Really?
Yes. The source says, and I love this quote, "Grief doesn't have to be eloquent to be valid."
Grief doesn't have to be eloquent to be valid. That is something I think a lot of people need to hear. I need to write that down.
If you cry, if you lose your place, if you ramble a bit about a memory that only makes sense to you, that is human. That is love. The audience at a funeral isn't grading you on rhetoric.
They're not holding scorecards.
No. They are there to witness your love for the deceased.
The vulnerability is the tribute.
Exactly. The crack in your voice says more than the perfect adjective ever could.
Okay. So if we accept that perfection isn't the goal, how do we use the tool? The source proposes a collaborative partner model.
Yes. It doesn't say ban AI. That's unrealistic. It says redefine the role. Use AI as a partner, not a ghostwriter.
Okay, walk me through that. Let's do a little role play. I'm sitting there. I have the blank page. What do I do?
First, do the brain dump yourself. Don't go to the AI first. This is crucial.
Okay.
Write down your bullet points. The messy ones, the random fragments. Smelled like tobacco, hated the Yankees, loved his dog more than his kids.
Joke. Okay, I have my messy list. It looks like nonsense to anyone but me.
Perfect. That nonsense is the gold. Then you can use the AI. You can say, here's the list of memories. Can you help me organize them chronologically?
Or thematically.
Or thematically.
Oh, yeah.
Or I want to end with the dog story. How do I get there from the Yankees story?
So I'm using it for structure. I'm using it to build the scaffolding, but I provided all the bricks.
Yes. Or for prompts, this is a great one. Ask me 5 questions about my father's childhood to help me remember.
Oh, I love that. Using the AI to unlock your own memory rather than replacing it.
It turns the AI into an interviewer rather than a writer.
It becomes a therapist, almost. A memory jogger.
Exactly. But, and this is the key, you need to constantly be checking it against your own internal truth. The source offers some litmus test questions.
Yes, these are great. Every user should ask themselves these before they hit print. What are they?
First, does this sound like me? Read it out loud.
If it uses words you've never spoken in your life, if you're saying herewith and aforementioned and solemnly gather, and you're a casual guy who usually says, hey folks, delete them.
Exactly. It creates cognitive dissonance for the audience if you sound like a Victorian novel. They know you. They know how you speak.
Okay, so that's the first question. What's the second?
Second, does this truly reflect who they were? Not just, is it a nice description, but is it them?
Does it capture their spirit?
Yes. If the answer is I don't know or kind of, you need more human input.
If you find yourself hesitating, it's a sign that the AI has taken the wheel. You need to take it back. You need to dirty it up a bit, add the flaw, add the inside joke that the AI wouldn't understand.
That's the key. Add the specificity back in.
The source also speculates a bit about the future. This is 2026. These tools are getting better every single day.
The implication is that algorithm-assisted remembrance could become the norm. Just like we don't think twice about spell check now, we might not think twice about grief check in 10 years.
That's a weird thought. Grief check.
Ow.
Hey, your grief score is low. Try adding more pathos.
It is. And the source argues that there is an urgency to establish these ethical boundaries now. If we don't decide that human voice is central to memorial practices, we might lose it by accident.
We could just drift into it without realizing.
We might drift into a world where all funerals sound exactly the same because they're all written by the same model.
A world of homogenized, perfect, hollow goodbyes. Everyone is a beacon of light, everyone is a cherished soul, and no one is actually known.
Exactly. So we have to be intentional. Technology should serve the purpose of the eulogy, not redefine it. We have to keep the human in the loop.
Okay, let's bring this all together. We've covered a lot of ground. We've gone from the biology of cortisol to the ethics of data privacy to the mechanics of prompt engineering.
It's a big topic for something that seems so simple on the surface.
The main tension is pretty clear. AI offers logistical ease in a time of absolute chaos. It's a tool that can help you when you can barely function, and that is valuable. We can't dismiss that.
No, we can't. Compassion dictates that we offer people tools to help them through the worst weeks of their lives. We shouldn't be purists just for the sake of it.
But, and it's a huge but, it risks emotional distance in a time that requires intimacy. It saves time, but it might cost you meaning.
It's a trade-off.
Yeah.
And we have to be aware of the price tag. The efficiency costs you the catharsis. The polish costs you the truth.
The ultimate takeaway for me looking at this source material is that honoring a life requires presence, it requires remembrance, it requires love. And those are three things that no matter how advanced the model gets, GPT-5, GPT-6, whatever comes next, AI simply cannot provide.
AI can process data, you can predict tokens, it cannot feel love, it cannot miss someone, it cannot stare at an empty chair and feel the weight of the absence.
And a eulogy at its core is the act of missing someone out loud.
Missing someone out loud. That's beautiful, and that's a human job.
It is.
It has to be.
Final stance from the source and from us. AI is a tool, not an author. The human must remain the storyteller.
The human must remain the storyteller. I think that sums it up perfectly.
Before we sign off, we want to leave you with one final thought to mull over, something that isn't explicitly in the text but kind of hovers over this whole conversation like a ghost.
It's a question of your own legacy.
If you were to die tomorrow, and your family was overwhelmed and tired and sad, would you care? Would you care if the words spoken at your funeral were generated by an algorithm? As long as they made your family cry? As long as they sounded nice?
Or does the value of the tribute come from the struggle? Is the fact that your son or daughter struggled to find the words, is the struggle itself the actual tribute?
That's the question. Would you rather have a perfect speech written by a robot or a messy, broken speech written by the people who loved you? Think about it. Thanks for listening to this deep dive. We'll catch you next time.